The headlines blared, echoing across the country and beyond its borders, capturing the world's attention. St. Petersburg erupts. Youth defy Kremlin. Putin's Russia faces a 1991 flashback as protests sweep the nation, reminiscent of the days when the Soviet Union teetered on the edge of collapse. It was October 2025, and a chill was descending on Russia, one born of unrest, not weather. The air felt heavy, charged with uncertainty and the weight of history repeating itself. The streets, once symbols of state power, were now stages for a new drama. Every corner, every square, became a battleground for voices demanding to be heard. For many, these scenes echoed a past of upheaval they thought was buried. Memories of the Soviet collapse flickered in the minds of the older generation, while the young saw a chance to shape their own destiny. This was no isolated incident, but the result of years of simmering discontent. Frustrations had built up, quietly at first, then louder, until they could no longer be ignored. The war's cost was felt everywhere, patriotic fervor replaced by grief and exhaustion. Families mourned, lost loved ones, and the hope that once united, the nation had faded. Economic promises had evaporated, savings dwindled, futures uncertain. Shops stood empty, jobs disappeared, and the dream of prosperity seemed more distant than ever. The state's narrative of glory was unraveling, unable to mask harsh realities. Propaganda lost its power as truth seeped through the cracks, exposing the struggles beneath the surface. Young Russians, raised online and impatient for change, led the charge. They organized in encrypted chats, shared information instantly, and refused to be silenced. They saw their future mortgaged for a war they didn't support. Their voices, once dismissed, now rang out in the streets and across social media. The government, caught off guard, found old tactics failing against a generation fluent in digital resistance. Attempts to censor or intimidate only fueled the movement further. Images of protest spread like wildfire, haunting the Kremlin's carefully constructed authority. Each viral post chipped away at the illusion of control. The system, built on control, now faced its greatest challenge in decades. The nation stood at a crossroads, its future uncertain as the world watched and waited. The protests erupted from deep frustrations, not just anti-war sentiment, but personal grief and economic pain. Inflation soared, new taxes hit hard, and the promise of stability rang hollow. People worked harder for less, the gap between rhetoric and reality impossible to ignore. Dissent united students, workers, and pensioners across Russia's vast expanse. State media's stories of battlefield glory fell flat, with a generation that could fact-check in seconds. The Kremlin's claims of foreign-paid agitators convinced few. The crowds were their own friends and neighbors. The storm had been gathering for years. Now it had broken. The nation's patience had run out. St. Petersburg became the epicenter of defiance, a city where the pulse of resistance beat stronger with every passing day. The streets, once quiet, now echoed with the footsteps of those demanding a new future. On a crisp October night, thousands of young people surged onto Nevsky Prospect, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of smartphone screens. The air was electric with anticipation, as if the city itself was holding its breath. There were no party flags, no official slogans, just a spontaneous collective demand for change that united strangers into a single determined voice. Suddenly, a sound system shattered the night's tension, blasting Paramin, Changes, remixed by the band rapper Oxymiron. The forbidden song became an anthem, its beat reverberating through the crowd. The crowd erupted in unison, chanting the chorus with passion. Their voices rose above the city's rooftops, echoing through the streets and into the night, a chorus of hope and defiance. Protesters projected Swan Lake onto a neoclassical building, a haunting callback to the collapse of 1991, when the ballet became a symbol of political upheaval and uncertainty. The fusion of band, rap, and classical ballet sent a powerful message. It was as if the present crisis was echoing a pivotal moment in history, blending the old with the new to demand a different future. Oxymiron's track challenged the suffocating grip of censorship, while Swan Lake served as a warning of how fragile power can be in the face of collective will. The protest became a living fusion of memory and rebellion, as young and old stood side by side, linking past struggles with the present fight for freedom. The symbolism was unmistakable, a warning to those in power, and a declaration that a new generation would not be silenced. In that moment, the youth claimed their place in Russia's unfolding story, stepping boldly into the spotlight as leaders of change. The call for change was impossible to ignore, reverberating through the city and beyond, signaling that a new era was beginning, one shaped by the voices and dreams of a new generation. Swan Lake's projection was a masterstroke of protest theater. Once a symbol of Russian culture and stability, the ballet became infamous in 1991, looping on TV as the Soviet Union teetered. Since then, Swan Lake signals crisis, a dark joke, a warning that something is wrong at the top. Its music, once prideful, now carries foreboding. By invoking Swan Lake, protesters tapped into a deep national anxiety. It was a message to both elders and the Kremlin. We remember what happens when the state loses control. The ballet's ghost haunted the streets, connecting today's unrest to the Soviet collapse. The protest wasn't just about the present, it was a profound historical statement. The past was alive in the city's heart. The warning was clear: power can unravel overnight. The youth made sure everyone remembered. The link between the 2025 protests and the 1991 coup runs deep, echoing through the streets and hearts of those who seek change. In 1991, brave citizens faced down tanks and toppled a regime, birthing a powerful myth. United, the people could win against any odds. But the aftermath brought chaos and economic hardship, a memory Putin's government has used to justify decades of tight control and authority. The state's message is clear: only strong leadership can prevent a return to the turmoil and instability of the 90s, a narrative repeated often. Now young protesters reject that fear, reclaiming the spirit of 1991 while demanding real, tangible change for their future. They see Putin's so-called stability as stagnation, not salvation, and they are determined to voice their discontent. The battle is over history itself. The Kremlin warns of the 90s, while the youth invoke 1991's hope and promise of a better tomorrow. The band rap anthem bridges generations, linking old dreams to new frustrations, uniting voices across time. The fight for Russia's future is also a fight over its past, a struggle to define what change truly means. The meaning of change is up for grabs, as each generation seeks to shape the narrative and destiny of their nation. The Kremlin's response was swift and severe. Riot police cleared the streets, arrests followed. Online, censors scrubbed protest images and blocked news sites. Oxymiron, the rapper, was branded a foreign agent and charged in absentia. The state tried to erase the protest's cultural power by targeting its symbols. State TV ignored the protests or painted demonstrators as foreign-backed hooligans. The goal: isolate protesters, portray them as a fringe. But the crackdown revealed insecurity, not strength. Banning songs and arresting artists only fueled the anger. The Iron Fist was forging a new generation of dissidents. After the protests, society fractured along old lines. State media blamed foreign interference, claiming the West manipulated youth through social media. This narrative comforted many, especially older Russians, absolving the government of blame. Pro-war voices called for harsher crackdowns, branding protesters as traitors. Protesters, meanwhile, saw the foreign agent story as an excuse. Real grievances were domestic. In private chats, they shared stories of loss and hardship. Many feared chaos but didn't support the war, torn between anger and anxiety. The government's strongest asset was still the fear of instability. Economic pain pushed discontent mainstream. The war economy enriched a few but starved the civilian sector. Tax hikes and rising prices hit ordinary Russians hardest. Small businesses were squeezed, dreams of independence fading. Import duties on cars sparked outrage, especially in the Far East. Protests erupted. "We are being robbed." Economic grievances were personal and impossible to ignore. The social contract was broken. The state no longer delivered stability. Anger over empty wallets merged with anger over war, an explosive mix. The government doubled down on digital control, blocking independent news and pushing state-run platforms. Attempts to block Telegram and Signal sparked outrage, uniting unlikely allies in defense of digital freedom. For every platform blocked, users found workarounds, VPNs, peer-to-peer sharing. The more the state censored, the more people sought forbidden knowledge. Crackdowns on music only made protest anthems more popular. The Kremlin was losing the digital battle to a tech-savvy generation. As 2025 ends, Russia stands at a crossroads. The protests have exposed deep cracks in Putin's rule. The echoes of 1991 grow louder. The demand for change is unstoppable. The future is unwritten, but the storm has arrived.